sports fans, and welcome to the PRI Sim Racing Arena here in the heart of the racing capital of the world, Indianapolis itself. My name is DJ Clark, delighted to be bringing you along for the ride here today. We've got a bunch of great action taking place. Drivers currently on track for the last little bit of practice at Road America as they get ready in the Dallara EXP to be able to head out for a brief series of 2 races out on track, 2 30-minute races that will be taking place here, broadcast live on Twitch as well as live here in the PRI Sim Racing Arena. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to be able to bring you on through all the action, a little bit of a debut of both as they come up and get going, and we are ready to welcome up my wonderful co-commentator here, a friend of SRO Motorsports Group America, Kevin Boehm. It is great to have you up here. Get that headset on you, nice and close there. Don't look at that monitor. It may be a little bit laggy. This is the one you're going to want to watch when we get racing. But Kevin, great to have you up here, man.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Closer.
Yep. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, very exciting here to be able to be debuting Road America. You are obviously a driver that knows quite a bit about that circuit. What is it like to be able to drive at the National Park of Speed?
Well, I mean, Road America is very special because it's an old school track. It's very, very high speed, high consequence. So to get a great lap there, it takes a lot of concentration and a lot of bravery, and man, it feels good when you get it right.
I can only imagine. About the most I've done around Road America is a golf cart in real life, so that is very, very exciting. But, of course, let's talk about you for a quick second here. A very successful, it has to be said, 2024 season. Didn't come up with necessarily the result that you guys wanted at the very, very end, but pretty close over across the board.
Yeah, I mean, we had a really great year. We won some races. We were on the podium a bunch, and we had some races that we'd like to try again, and I think the last one was an example of that. But that's racing, to be honest. You never can guarantee that everything will fall even remotely in your direction. So we had a great year overall. We were second in the championship, and to be able to be fighting all the way for the win to the end is a pretty big accomplishment. We can't guarantee we'll be in that position every year, but that's always our goal, and trying to get all the chips in place to do it again next year.
Well, we hope to see you out on the grid. You're always one of our favorites to be able to talk to, whether it's in pit lane or especially in victory podium when we're able to get there. That's always one of our favorite things to do. But these drivers going to be driving this Dallara EXP around here. Do you know much about this car? Or I
think the little bit that I know, I saw one go around Spa earlier this year. Ooh. And the sound that it made was pretty spectacular. So, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun for these guys.
Well, you are obviously a fantastic driver, but you also come from a little bit of an engineering mechanical background. So I'm curious to kind of dive with you on this from a mechanical setup, from an engineering standpoint. What do you need at Road America? What kind of compromises do you have to make in a race car?
Well, I think the biggest misconception with Road America is that it's got long straightaways, so you want to be fast in the straight line, but in reality, you need a car that handles really good to make lap time there. So if you can't get off the turn, if you can't get from the apex to turn off and be able to commit to full throttle first, you're not going to be fast at the end of the straightaway. So the biggest thing that you're looking for at Road America is getting a car that has really good drive off, a car that can commit the throttle really early on the corner exit. And you have to do that by kind of compromising the setup to be able to kind of get the car as straight as possible, and be able to commit the throttle, full throttle. You want to be early as possible to full throttle and then do it from there.
All right, well, we'll have to see if any of these drivers are able to do just that. Drivers headed out on track here for a 15-minute qualifying session. This will set the field for both of our races here. We'll have 2 30-minute races. This is pretty cool. We've got Staff Sergeant Thad Weaver out on track. We had a chance earlier to talk to the U.S. Army sim racing team. Really kind of cool to be able to see what they're doing and putting that all together, so we wish Thad all the best. Coming down through the portion of the track that's called the Hurry Downs, obviously a downhill section. I know for me, whenever I'm on the sim, turn 6 is my bogey corner. I can never get it right. Do you have any of those on this track?
Well, I mean, I'd say every one of them to start with. I mean, it's really hard to get good reference sometimes because you're going so fast at the end of these straightaways. To be really precise with your braking points is really hard until you build a bunch of references to be able to know where you're at. But yeah, I mean, this track is really difficult because it changes a lot over time. As you rubber in, the track rubbers in, your braking points are going to change depending on if there's clouds or sun. It may change where the grip is on the track, so you really always have to adapt to the track itself. And I think in the sim here, you have a little bit less of that, but it's sometimes really hard to pick up your reference points. And we're seeing a good example here that you can't see very far. So to pick out your braking points and be really precise with them to make sure you're getting everything out of all the brake zones, it really makes it difficult, and there's a lot of lap time there.
Yeah, and as you said, really making sure you can maximize coming off of the corners to carry as much speed as possible. Luke Whitehead, our winner from yesterday's SRO Pro-Am Invitational, making his way down into the braking zone of turn 5. Car looks a little bit squirmy under braking. It just looks a little bit unsettled, or is that just me?
No, I mean, you kind of want that a little bit because it helps be able to rotate the car in the beginning of the turn. So if it's on edge in the brake zone, then as soon as you hit the direction, the car is going to go that direction, and you can kind of open your hands, stabilize it, and now you're ready to point and shoot with the power. So it's not a bad way to do it. You just have to be, you can't excite it. You can't be too active with your hands. You can't make it worse. So you have to make sure that you're using it to your advantage and not kind of it controlling you. You want to control it.
Excuse me, I'm allergic to my home state now. That's a problem that keeps happening anytime I come back to Indiana. Whitehead makes his way down through Kettle Bottoms, down into Canada Corner. All right, I got to ask you this question. Do you have a theory as to why it's called Canada Corner? Do you have your personal explanation? Because I've heard about everything under the sun.
I've never even thought about it, to be honest. I think for me, it's so hard to get that turn perfect. I don't care about the name.
Yeah, it's always a tricky one. It's one of those corners that I think whenever I'm driving in the sim, I'll be very clear. When I talk about driving, it's in the sim. I do not have the talent to go out on the real racetrack. But it always seems like a corner that in my head, I want to slow down more than I actually need to going through it. You've got to carry so much minimum corner speed to get a good line through there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you find a lot of turns at Road America. You think that it's going to be kind of a late turn in, so where you get the car straight and point out, but in reality, a lot of the turns you turn in way earlier than you initially expect, and your mid-speed happens a lot later in the turn than you expect for a track that you're trying to maximize straight line. So it's a real challenge to not give up any lap time in the brake zones, but still prioritize corner exit to get your straight line speed. It's a real hard thing to balance.
Yeah, and it's as you talked about earlier, also to do with the setup, finding that balance as well in between. Well, to the surprise of really no one here, Luke Whitehead is up at the top of the charts. Michael Manning behind him. Then Sudik, McKenzie, Tashada, both of the Tashadas, and Luke Gobi, your top 7. Looks like Mike Ogren's going to jump up into the top 4. Looking about a 3.5 second gap in between these cars right now. That's pretty big, even for a 4-mile circuit like Road America.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we would, I think in GT4 America, typically our top 10 is separated by way less than a second. So I imagine as everybody gets to grips with the car, they're going to kind of get their tires warmed up and start to execute their laps and close that gap a little bit.
With tires on this, is Road America a long enough circuit that you're able to get those tires to the operating window at the end of the warm-up lap on the out lap, or does it really take an extra lap to really get them in that perfect window?
Yeah, I mean, in real life, it really depends on the sun. So if it's cloudy, especially with the new surface that they've added, it's so smooth it doesn't put a lot of heat into the tires. So it may take 2 or 3 laps if the sun's not out to kind of have the surface hot to start with. And it makes it for really interesting and kind of first couple of laps as you everybody has the same problem, fortunately, so everybody's speed is arrested a little bit, but whoever does the best job of getting their tire temperature and pressures up has a big advantage. So trying to experiment with different ways to do that through some of the practice sessions and things like that is really important, so that you might have a quarter lap worth of better tires than everybody else as the race starts.
And that can make the world of difference,
Correct.
I'm sure.
Yep.
Well, we saw there Sergeant Michael Serra having a little bit of an off into some of the gravel traps. You mentioned earlier this being an old school circuit a little bit in the way that it runs. Not a lot of that paved runoff that we're used to seeing. It is grass and gravel on the outside.
That's right. I mean, you have a couple of places like the exit of turn 1 here where it's made it a lot easier to attack that turn, because if you make a mistake, you can kind of gather it up on the exit, go a little wide and deal with it. But you have the opposites of that when you look at the places like the kink, where you have about 3 feet of grass and then a pretty immovable object, and anytime you make contact with that wall, it's a major ordeal.
Well, we've seen a couple of times in SRO competition. I think back to IndyCar this year with Joseph Newgarden with that hellacious lick into the wall. I can tell you from experience, that was one that you heard on the other side of the track when he hit that one. Logan McKenzie currently right now in 4th, though, with about 7 minutes left to go in qualifying, making his way through the hurry downs in that purple and black Dallara EXP. Trying to close the gap here on Luke Whitehead. Looks 1 second. That is pretty unassailable. I mean, Kyle Heyer always likes to talk about a second a lap. Well, that's a 10th in the corners and here and there. You're talking about basically you're gaining a quarter of a second on each quarter of this lap.
That's right, and I mean, there's a lot of turns at Road America, so a second sounds like a lot, but at a track that's 4 miles long, it's not as much as you think, and often just one small adjustment could make up that entire second in gap if you can just fix one thing, but fix it in every single place in the track. So it's a big challenge to get a lap perfect here, because it's such a long lap. There's honestly a lot of opportunities for you to make that little mistake and give up some time. So and often you make that mistake in the corner, which sacrifices your entire straightaway. So there's so many compounding things working against you here, and that's why it feels so good when you get a great lap.
Yeah, and this is a track that I have been told that when you get that perfect lap, you just know it. You feel it intrinsically in the car and in your bones.
That's for sure. And I think the thing that happens to some of us is you're 3/4 of the way around and you feel it. You're on the lap and you're like, well, I can't give it away. So now do you start giving a little bit more margin, or do you keep attacking the way you're doing it? So it's really an intimidating place, even when you're under control. But how much are you asking to try to push the actual limit all the way to the edge without making a mistake? Because mistakes are huge here.
Yeah, they really and truly are. Michael Manning comes across the line, not able to improve on that last lap. But I think about what you were talking about that pushing over the edge a little bit more. To me, that line is always through turn 14. There is so much time you can gain through that corner, but if you're off just a little bit, it all goes to naught.
That's right, and it's a game of inches. Like you want to use everything that's available from a track limits perspective, but sometimes it takes less than an inch for you to step over that bounds, and the consequences are huge. Sometimes you just lose some time as you gather it up, but sometimes you hit the wall and you really make a mess of it. So as we see some really big action here on the backside of the kink.
Yeah, that was Mike Ogren, and I believe that may have been Luke McKenzie as well that made contact there on the exit of the kink. Both cars flying up into the air. Not exactly what you want to see. Thank goodness we're on the sim here at this point, not in real life.
That's right. Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I saw some real-life cases of that this year, and we definitely don't like to see that. But like you said, fortunately, it's in the sim, so there's some reset buttons being pressed and another chance of going at it.
All right, we're under 4 minutes to go here in qualifying as everyone works their way on through. Still trying to chase down on Luke Whitehead. Manning Polasek, Mackenzie Oring, your top 5. A lot of the same names that we saw yesterday. Kicking up a little bit of dirt there on the exit of Canada corner and up through Bill Mitchell Bend goes Michael Manning, trying to be able to see if he can get this to go. And turn 14, I would have come back to this a little bit. There is that change in tarmac that does exist there. Does that still exist with the new pavement? That there's that kind of change in coloration?
No, it's that's all gone away now, so it's pretty consistent everywhere. And the biggest challenge now, previously we had different kind of patches where it had been paved over time, but after they resurfaced the whole track, now you're just looking at places that have the parts of the track that have worn more or aged more than others, where the differential grip comes. So again, you have to experiment as we go through one of our weekends and find how it's changed since the last time we were there. And it changes pretty quick, even over a season. So if we're there with multiple series, then sometimes or even from a test to the event, or even from the beginning of an event to the end of the event, it can change quite a bit. So we always have to be on our toes to try to find where those little nuanced areas of grip are and really try to exploit it.
Well, and I know that was such a big storyline last year with the repave, and this year with it coming in. What did you experience? I mean, did it grip up in a way that was at least, I don't want to say typical, but expected, or were there some curveballs that were still thrown in?
There's always a curveball. So I think last year, right after it was resurfaced, the curveball was how there was really one racing line, and if you were off that racing line, you could be 20% down on grip, which is pretty massive. And it made it just really hard to do any kind of passing. If you were the car online, you had a huge advantage even if you didn't have the pace, because there was no way around you. Unless they could pass you on the straightaway, they're behind you. They're not going around you on the outside of the turn because there's no grip out there. And there was a little bit less of that this year when we were there, but there were a couple of turns that just had not gripped up as much. So as we're approaching the kink here, for example, the kink was really slippery this year. So it was very, very difficult to make sure you got everything out of this turn without doing that and risking a lot.
Yeah, Oring getting a little bit sideways
That's
there.
Right.
And I mean, the kink is terrifying under normal conditions. I can't imagine what it would be like with that. Oring, though, a little bit wide on the exit of Canada corner, coming out and over on those rumbles. That's a little bit too far out. Or?
I think that's a pretty appropriate line. I mean, generally we're trying to test what SRO will let us get by with. If they'll let us open our hands up and make the track even wider, we're going to do it. But there is a limit to it. But generally, like that, there was a little bit of left sides in the dirt, and we do that in real life sometimes. We try to keep it to a minimum because we don't want to cut any tires or damage anything. But from time to time, it's best to just open the hands, drive through it, and it makes for really good lap time.
It always does. It seems like, at least when you're able to do that. And as you said, SRO let you get away with it there. I know definitely in Pirelli GT4, Brian Till sometimes comes down and cracks the whip a little bit when it comes to track limits, but nevertheless, Mike Ogren working his way on through the carousel as he tries to apply the power. We talked about braking markers and braking points. I'm always curious, with something like the carousel that seems to be a never-ending corner, do you have a throttle application marker where you go, okay, now is when I need to put the throttle down to full, or is that more of a feel in the car?
Well, it's a combination of both. I have a reference of where I want to be full throttle, but you can't just do it. So if maybe on new tires, there's some reference points as you go around. You'll see some curbing come into your view on the inside, and that's a big key marker for me to know where I'm at in the turn. But determining on where I'm going to full throttle is what it feels like in that moment. Do I have a little bit of understeer? Am I kind of dancing with my hands a little bit to keep the car stable? That all is kind of clues that I need to know. Can I add any power, or do I need to be a little bit farther around the turn to be able to do it? And with the tires that we're using with the Pirellis, with new tires, we'll be able to commit the throttle really early in the carousel, and then as we go through our hour-long races, the tires won't let us do that anymore, so you really have to adapt to it as the tire changes through a stint.
Again, that constant change that you talked about, a constant variable that you have to keep up with. Clock has officially hit 0 as drivers will be able to complete their hot laps here. Wade Tashada looks like going to be one of the first ones to be able to do so. I think I see some brakes getting applied. And there, of course, we are done with the session, of course, as soon as I get you all excited for it. But folks, stick around for it. We're getting ready to go racing here. A full cadre of 13 of these Dallara EXPs ready to go. All right, overtaking zones, getting ready, getting set, off of the green flag. What are you focused on? Is it getting through turn 1 cleanly, or are you setting your sights down the road?
It's a little bit of both. It's the first priority is to get through one clean, but at the same time, you want to take advantage of anything that's happening in front of you. So if as we start 2x2, if one lane's got a little bit more momentum than the other, and a gap opens in that lane, I'm going to try to get into that lane. But for the most part, it's trying to survive turn 1, and then the nicest thing about Road America when it comes to racing is that where are the passing zones? Everywhere. There really isn't a place you can't pass. There's places that are really hard to pass, but essentially the brake zones are really inviting. But then getting a good exit means that you're going to be able to get a run down the straightaway, which leads you into the next brake zone, which it's a pattern that keeps repeating itself all the way around constantly. So I think the beauty of it is everywhere you can pass. So it's any opportunity you're looking to try to take advantage of any differential momentum and use it to get around somebody, or hopefully use that to your defense to keep somebody behind you.
As the drivers get ready here in their pre-race ceremony, I want to talk about your pre-race. What kind of things do you do when you're strapped into the car if you're starting? Obviously, Pirelli GT4, a 2-driver series, so some races you'll be in pit lane and some races you're there. What's the kind of checklist that you have to go through when you roll off the grid, doing the formation lap, and coming to the green flag?
I think the biggest thing, because we have multiple drivers, is just confirming that nothing's changed since the last time you were in the car. Things like the brake bias, kind of what TC setting we're on, even the pedal position, steering position, just getting all those things set, and don't assume that they're right, because they're not all. Something may have changed, whether it was the co-driver or crew member or whatever it is. So kind of having just a checklist of those key things you have to check is the first thing, and really that's done right when you get in the car. You don't want to be thinking about that, and then once we're rolling, it's all 100% focused on trying to get energy into the tires, get the pressures up, get temperature in them, because when the green flag comes out, I don't want to have to be thinking too much about, do I have a good balance because of the tires yet or not. I just want to be able to drive. I want to react to the cars around me and put the car on the limit. So those outlap is really just about focused on getting heat in the brakes, heat in the tires, keep off the marbles, get the marbles off the tire if you feel them, and just prep. It's trying to get everything ready to go once the green comes out.
And mentally, does there come a point when you have to sort of detach a little bit and go, okay, it's game mode now? Or does doing that checklist actually kind of help you get into that zone?
It helps, because it's all of those things take time. And then eventually you're paired up, you're coming around the last turn, and now you have no other choice but be ready for the race. So you just start looking at the cars around you. You try to start to anticipate what's going to happen, and you have to be ready because it's going to start. So it kind of forces you to be in that spot where you're just heightened attention to everything around you, and then it's just kind of autopilot and kind of instinct from there.
How much are you making note of the other drivers around you when you're lined up on the grid going, okay, I know how person X races, so that informs how I'm going to drive?
Not a lot of active thought into it. I think before the race, there's a little bit of thought about what I think the first 3 turns are going to look like based on who is in the car around me. But from that point on, it's all about just trying to read the body language of the cars around you and anticipate what they're going to do from that body language, being able to read what kind of chassis balance do they have? Do they have a good handling car or a bad handling car? If you can read into that, you can start to understand where you might be able to take advantage of them.
All right. Well, plenty to learn here that I am diving into. I'm taking notes for when I go sim racing, but we've got to be ready to go here for racing itself because our cars are lined up on the grid. Based off the staggered formation, it does look like we are going to have a standing start here in these Dallara EXPs, so get ready for that, folks. A little bit of movement up in the flag stand here as we get ready to go. Standing starts, rolling starts. What are your favorites?
I'm a huge fan of rolling starts. These things make me hugely nervous, but this is going to be something.
It's going to be something, I can tell you that. Starting to hear those engines rev up a little bit more as we get ready. Waiting for the flag to fly. I take a quick look behind me to just kind of peer over the shoulders. That's what I'm doing there. I'm looking to see where the timing lights are so we know when the green's coming. Here they go, getting ready. Again, got to make sure all the sims are ready. Got to make sure everything's going. We've got a lot of technology here to keep in track of. There we go, lights coming on. Here we go. 3 lights are on, and there goes the green. Put 30 minutes up on the clock, and we are racing in Road America. Looks like a pretty good getaway there for Luke Whitehead. He's going to try to put some pressure. Little bit of swapping, that lane changing you talked about. Going on, contact farther back in the field as a couple of cars get bumped around, and I see at least 2 spinning off into the distance.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing to deal with when you have one contact. Often results in a lot of contact, and that's what we saw there.
Yeah, just that domino effect, especially into turn 1, which is such a fast corner of Road America.
That's right, yeah, and especially at the start, the brake zone becomes really short because you're not all the way up to speed yet. So in the end, big things can happen fast.
And we just saw them happen as they dive down into turn 5 here at this point, following Ethan Oring in his pursuit of Polasek, trying to see a little bit of a battle farther back in the field. Alou Gobi already making up some positions. Good moves there for Alou over to Shida right now. Ooh, cars off in the background. Maybe those tires not up to temperature into turn 6.
Yeah, and it's easy to overcook there because you kind of enter that turn on a crest, so you always lose a little bit of grip right on entry, so it's easy to overcook it and be wide on the exit.
What's the trick to getting turn 6 right? Because for the life of me, I've never done it.
Don't try too hard.
Okay.
It's honestly, you don't try to attack the brake zone. You just it's all about finesse as you enter. And then as the car settles in the middle, that's when you can start to really feel the grip and be more aggressive. But it's all about not being too aggressive, just being all about finesse there.
Okay, all right. I'm dead serious. I've never gotten that corner right, and no matter what car it is. We take a look back up at the front of the field. Luke Whitehead already pulling out a near 1 second advantage. Blake Tashida trying to close in on the back of the Luke Gobi. Now Tashida had that off that we saw when we were chatting going into turn 6. Now coming up through Billy Mitchell Bend. Gobi starting to streak off into the distance. Ooh, maybe a little bit of a wide run there. Jumping on board Ethan Oring, hoping to get a little bit of that draft coming up on the main straightaway.
Yeah, the draft can be really huge around here, up to 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. So being able to stay in that is going to really help you kind of attack your competitor.
It's down into turn 1. Polasek a little bit off the line there, not exactly together, but again, you can gather it back up into the braking zone for turn 2. Polasek, maybe tires aren't up to temperature. Looks like the lines just aren't right.
Yeah, it seems maybe either it's the tire grip isn't there yet, or maybe a little bit of overdriving. It's hard to tell the difference between the two from the outside, but it's really given a chance for the O-ring to make a run here and start the battle for position.
Now, as he starts to get into that, I had a chat a little bit earlier with Cameron Martineau about trying to get into the drivers' heads a little bit. On the sim, we see it all the time. We sometimes see it in real life, that poking to the inside, poking to the outside. How effective can that actually be?
It really depends. Again, that goes back to your question about kind of how I anticipate or how I consider the drivers around me, and some drivers, are just doing that as a tactic, so you can completely ignore it. If they do that consistently but don't actually do anything about it, it's just a ruse and you can ignore it. But some drivers do that and you don't know whether they're under control or not, and that will distract you, because if you don't pay attention to it, there might be a crash. So it really depends on the driver sometimes. You have to know who you're racing against and really use that to your advantage.
I continue to take great notes from you. This is fantastic. I'm like sitting here thinking about, okay, next time I'm in my sim, I'm going to apply this and do this. Farther back in the field, Jason Owens holding on to an advantage over J.R. Acker, trying to be able to hold that out here at the moment. Let's see. There's a little bit of that peak to the inside, a little bit of offline. Not going to go for the move there, but it does look like Acker's just trying to apply a little bit of that pressure as Luke Whitehead sets the fastest lap of the race.
That's right, and at this time it's really tough, because if you're the car under pressure, you can't let the car behind you distract you too much. You just have to keep doing your job as good as you can do it.
Well, one driver who's trying to be able to do that is Luke Gobi. Blake Tashida, we should say, as Sudik is able to get a pass done on Michael in the back. But Tashida trying to close on in there, getting that advantage of the draft. Obviously, a little bit of a catch-22 coming down into this braking zone. You get the benefit of the draft, you're going to have more speed. Your braking zone changes once again, so you got to take that into consideration.
That's right. You got to, again, kind of adapt to the changing conditions, and your speed at the end of the straightaway is one of those. So you have to account for the difference in speed, because it's very easy to kind of get over your head. If you just brake in the same spot, you're going to be going too fast to go through the turn. So you have to adapt to that, and then you can't. Often with the draft, you have to let it help you on the straightaways, but you can't start peaking out too early, because then you're going to lose the advantage from the draft. So you have to find a way to use that to get all the way close enough to create the pass, but not do that too early, or you lose the whole advantage of the draft to begin with.
Well, we haven't really seen it here at this point, but I've got to imagine if you're in a sandwich position where you've got a car behind you as well as ahead, you've also got to take that into consideration of, well, I can't poke out too early because then I'm going to get passed.
That's correct, and honestly, that's one of the most difficult positions to be in, because the third car in line in that scenario has the best draft of anybody, so they're always going to be the fastest. The car in the middle really can set the tone on how kind of safe this whole battle is, because if they start doing different things, then you can create a bottleneck of different scenarios on track, and it can be really erratic and dangerous. And it takes, as we see the true draft coming in here.
That's it, perfectly in motion. Blake Tashida going to get the run on Alu Gobi, going down into turn one, looks around the outside. Gobi's going to fall in line, maybe runs a little bit wide, a little bit of overspeed, but going to come back on line here as they dive down into turn three onto the binders. That crucial braking zone that you talked about to get the launch down into turn five.
That's right, and now the kind of roles have swapped here, and now Gobi has the draft, so we'll have to see how if these two cars are even enough in pace, you'll start to see these cars start to swap positions back and forth as the draft advantage goes from one to the other.
Oh, Gobi very late on the binders there, almost had to come to a complete stop mid-corner. Now climbing up the hill into turn six. Not really an overtaking zone there. You can do it, but you got to be aggressive, as you said, with that very kind of strange camber.
Yep, it can be done, and I've been on both the passing and the pass side there before, as we see these cars really battling hard on the straightaway here, and now they've swapped positions back and forth again.
And Gobi super late on the brakes down into turn 8. That was very impressive.
That's right, yeah. It's normally you don't see that big of a difference from one brake zone to another.
No, she really had that wound up underneath her and got it to play. Little bit of maybe a dab of the brakes there going through the kink. I couldn't see that, but now it looks like Tashida's going to get the benefit of the draft. You hit the nail on the head with this, Kevin. They are just absolutely bouncing back and forth, swapping positions lap after lap.
That's right, and when the cars are really evenly matched, we see this very often, and I think the real challenge is you start to have to play a game of chess of who wants to be in the lead win, because you only have to lead one lap, and that's the last one.
As a driver, when do you start counting back? When do you start doing that count back and planning out, okay, where do I want to be at the end of the race?
I think I used to do a little bit more strategy there, but I think now SRO does a really good job of the BOP for the most part, and I think in the end, you always just want to be the car leading. It's way better to be fighting from ahead than it is fighting from behind, especially when things like yellow flags can shorten the race and take away your chances at getting by somebody. You just want to do it as soon as possible and then fight from ahead. So right now, especially since the BOP is so close, we don't gain a huge advantage from drafting even. So in the end, you just want to be the lead car of a battle and just go from there.
Well, I'll tell you one driver who's absolutely doing that, and that is Luke Whitehead, who's up at the front of the field here. Dominant performance yet again, 5 seconds up into the lead. There's Luke on your screen. There is second place coming in behind. Ooh, big twitch there coming through the kink. Caught it, but Luke does look like, yeah, of course he is. He's waving at the camera. He's in absolute control right now.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's more risky to back down a little bit because you start to lose your focus a little bit. You want to be on that edge because it forces you to be paying so much attention to what you're doing, and that's actually a better way to stay in control of the car than backing down and leaving a little bit of safety factor, because you start to look around and see what else is happening. You get a little distracted, and we don't want that either.
No, I mean, you need to be up on the wheel at all times, especially in these higher horsepower, higher downforce cars that do have that little ability to snap a little bit like we see here in the Dallara EXP.
That's right, and I think staying on top of that, and again, reacting only as much as you have to, never overreacting to those little slides, the little twitches. That's the real key to get the extra 1-2% of lap time, and it's a real challenge. And putting it together for an entire race is also a big task at hand.
Yeah, it is. And it is one. And I mean, look at this. Whitehead is just, that car is slipping and sliding, moving a little bit. Good rotation through the corner, as you said, but just on it as they go down into turn 5. Gobi, on the other hand, has a rear view mirror full of Toshida directly behind Lou, trying to close on in. A little hop, skip, and a jump over the curb, but well, the shoe's on the other foot. We saw Gobi chasing. Now Gobi's on the defense.
That's right, and I get the sense that we're going to see this swap positions maybe a few more times as another pass comes into turn 5 here, or at least an attempt.
Thought about it down to the inside, did Toshiba, just trying to see if there was that opportunity. Backs off a little bit. As a driver, again, those kind of maneuvers where you're going to go for it, and that I don't think was a poke to the inside. That was a real thought about an attack. How careful do you have to be with throwing those kind of moves? Because it does look like here at this point Brian lost some time.
That's right. I mean, sometimes it really comes down again to who you're up against. If you're racing against someone that's very, very experienced, and you know that if you make a little mistake, that they're going to see that you made a little mistake, and they're going to help you not crash, then you might be more aggressive than someone that you know is not going to care that you're there and they're going to chop over your nose. You might be a little bit more cautious. So you have to kind of race your competition for who they are, and they're doing the same thing to you. So they're trying to use what they know about you to your disadvantage as well. So it's a moving chess game that's happening at 130 miles an hour.
That's what makes racing the greatest sport in the world, is you're playing multiple games of strategy and skill all at the same time. Wade Toshida on your screen right now with about 17 and a half minutes left to go. Whoa! Big move down to the inside for Sudik. I did not see that one coming.
Oh, yeah, that was big.
I mean, just an absolute send down into Canada corner. Sudik is going to be able to hold on to that position, start to push ahead here a little bit, potentially. Oh, and now is going to get another run as Michael has an off, going through the final corner. Almost contact there between himself and Toshida. Toshida is now ahead. Michael has lost 2 spots in 1 corner.
Yeah, and that's really the consequences of what seemed like a little mistake, a little 2 wheels off, and you can lose two positions out of it. So things happen really fast on track when you're dealing with a track that's really difficult like this, that has those braking and turn events, and then the kind of requirement to be power down early and so on and so forth. It's a huge challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and those fine margins. Again, this is why we love these classic-style, old-school circuits where runoffs aren't there to catch the cars; they're there to punish you.
That's right, and I think the exit curbing here is a perfect example of that. It looks nice and black and like it would be fast to use all of it, but it's very aggressive vertically, and it really upsets the car. So you have to use it for what you can, but also it can punish you. It can make the tires spin a little bit, so you might not get as good of a drive off for the straightaway. So there's so many things working against you at this track, and that's what makes it so great when you get a good lap here.
Yeah, it is absolutely perfect when you do get that hooked up. Tashida coming on. Looks like Gobi has again been passed by the other Tashida, Brian Tashida, so that's another change. Oh no, something's happened to Gobi. She's fallen down through the order as Luke McKenzie's also gotten by her. We'll see if we can get that on your screen here shortly as we continue to watch the battle between Wade Tashida and Sudik. Gobi, I've got to assume that was maybe an error coming through Canada corner based off of where we're seeing her come back on.
Yeah, it's either that or maybe something happened in the kink. It's hard to tell from here, but yeah, I mean, again, it's a little inconsequential thing can add up to a lot of time and a lot of change in position.
Now, one of the problems that I always run into when I'm practicing on the sim again and doing all of that is I tend to focus in on my mistakes. If I make a mistake in a corner, I then think about, okay, I made the mistake there last time, don't do it this time, and sometimes that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you run into that? Do other drivers run into that, or is that just my own neuroses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to do that, but you have to do it constructively. So, for one, you can't think about the mistake itself. So the mistakes happened and gone, and the consequences are what you're dealing with now. So you have to move on from that. But once you come around to that particular spot of the track, the next lap, you know what not to do because that didn't work. So the best thing to do is to know that you're going to make a little bit of an adjustment and make an educated guess on what that adjustment needs to be, or be more precise, and that you just need to use that mistake constructively. You can't punish yourself for making the mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, but you want to use it to make yourself better the very next lap and the very next lap.
All right, again, I'm learning all of these things. I want you to be on all of the broadcasts. I feel like I can't wait to get home and strap into my rig and put this all into action. As the drivers who are here that are on their rigs, Logan McKenzie, Brian Tashida, nice little battle coming out of the carousel. McKenzie maybe backing off a little bit before the kink. Oh, and goes off. Contact into the left side of the track. Gobi's going to be able to try to take advantage of that. As McKenzie gets off to the right, Gobi's going to go on through. And there again, just those millimeters that things can go wrong.
Yep, just dropping two wheels there. There's not a lot of room on the outside, so it results in a contact with the wall. Huge delta in speed, and then it gives another car a chance to make a run into Canada.
Now, is that a little bit of that case of sometimes, I don't want to say, that's a slowing car of Tashida. Now McKenzie's going to get a little bit of a run. 3 wide contact. Gobi gets hit into there by Tashida, and McKenzie's going to gain those spots back. My goodness gracious, all kinds of drama coming down the main straightaway. That order now at this point is McKenzie, Tashida, and Gobi. Now it has been completely reshuffled.
Yeah, that was pretty dramatic there. It looked like one of the cars got a slow exit, and then yeah, I think Gobi maybe chose the slow car to try to get a draft, which actually caused a bottleneck and gave the third car in line a run. So it was so many things happening there, and that's again how you have to read the situation and be able to pick the right kind of situation for you. Oh, as we see a really late braking maneuver wide using the runoff down there.
Yeah, that again was a Luke Gobi. I think just maybe caught it a little bit wrong coming down into the braking zone for turn 5. She really held it out there, and credit to Lou for being able to keep that car under control, avoiding an incident, because how many times have we seen big pileups down into turn 5.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in that myself, so I think kind of staying outside the curb there and going straight was a great choice to try not to affect everybody else as much, and it's really hard to do that in the moment for sure.
Side-by-side battle now coming down through the Moraine sweep. Owens and Ogren, the two O's, getting ready to battle down into the braking zone. Ogren getting a little bit slideways off onto the grass, but Ogren gets that corner. Owens going to try to fight back as they climb up the hill into turn 6. Owens is committed to that line to the inside, and there you see Ogren going a bit wide. We said it was almost impossible to pass through 6. Well, I guess that's how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, that goes back to you as the passing car, you give them the indicators that you're going to try to make the pass, and maybe you force them into mistake, and I think that's what we saw right there.
Sometimes just those little mistakes can be the difference. We saw that with Gobi, with McKenzie, with all of those drivers, that battle that we saw farther up in the field. Here's a nice little battle we've got going on. This is for the final podium position. Polasek and O-Ring trying to fight themselves out a little bit. All right, great camera there as we look back on Polasek. O-Ring behind. Good lines there from both drivers. O-Ring's just been chipping away at this and slowly but surely working his way forward, trying to see if there's anything he can claw in.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of a long race. Maybe the turn 1 or lap 1 didn't go well, but you have a chance to try to put it all together, and it's really a race is the sum of all your laps. So you have to kind of move on and just do your best from there, and you might be able to recover to a podium position, for example.
Well, that's hopefully what O-Ring is going to be able to do. I say hopefully if you're a fan of Ethan O-Ring. If you're a fan of Michael Polasek, you're not hoping for that. Down for the braking into Canada corner. Drivers keeping it together, about 0.6 of a second, the difference between the two as they keep going. Now down through turn 14 they run to see if that draft is going to come into play. It looks like O-Ring's got a little bit more to try to close up in on.
Yeah, I think maybe not quite close enough for the draft to be hugely effective yet. I think it's probably helping a little bit, but not maybe just a couple of tenths a lap now. So it's still, you have to be really precise. Don't make any mistakes. If you have a little bit of a speed advantage, just make sure you don't rush it. There's still 9 minutes left in the race. If this is the one pass that you think you might be able to make, you just want to put yourself in position to make that one pass. You don't want to try too hard too early and then not basically make a mistake and never get a chance to try it.
What is relatively that effective draft range that I mean, obviously every car is going to be a little bit different in terms of the airflow, but what's about the point when you really start to feel it?
Somewhere around the 1 second mark in the gap is the general answer to that, but every single car is different. So some cars, like the car that I raced, the BMW M4 GT4, creates a massive hole in the air, so everybody gets to draft us as we just murder the air in front of us. But the cars like the Porsche is a very small car, so we don't gain much of an advantage behind the Porsche. So every car is a little bit different on how much air that they push out of the way, how big the car is, the shape of their wing. All of those things add up into the different kind of amounts that you're going to be able to feel that draft. And then the other thing that you really have to pay attention to, the draft doesn't just exist right behind the car, but as you get very, very close, the draft will exist beside the car. So you try to keep really, really close, keep your inside your front to their rear, and you keep as close as you can, because you can stay in the draft even once you're beside them a little bit. So there's lots of little tricks that you can feel. You almost feel the air as you're getting pushed around by it, and you drive by braille to some extent when you're really using the draft.
How do you feel it? Is it through the wheels? I mean, through the wheel? Like, is it just kind of a seat of the pants thing?
It's not really through the wheel as much as you just feel the car getting pushed. Okay. So the car you'll feel the car accelerate as you get really into the draft. You just see that closing in speed, and then as you get off to the side, you feel the car get pushed towards them. So you're trying not to touch them because the air is pushing you towards it, but that tells you you're in their side draft, and you just stay in it as long as you can. And then once you pass them, you try to get them out of your side draft so you can not help them at all. So and you can feel that as well because you feel you get pushed back to them from the rear of the car. So it's really about the car moving left and right is what you're feeling, and you feel that a little through the wheel, but it's more about just what it takes to drive straight.
All right. Oh, contact farther back in the field. Ogren and Owens looked like they had it coming together. Meanwhile, Gobi and Sudik were continuing their battle, and indeed continue it out, coming across the start-finish line, as Nicholas Sudik is now going to be up into that 7th place position. Gobi just having, frankly, an atrocious second half of this race. Luke looked very strong early on, and it has just kind of all fallen apart here.
Yeah, and I think that's the big challenge. Again, as a long race, it's the sum of all your laps. So you have to minimize your mistakes, minimize the size of the mistakes, and sometimes the competition is going to either create you having a mistake or make a mistake for you, as it were. But I think that's part of the challenge of going through one of these races and feeling good about it at the end.
Well, Sudik has been able to get by Gobi. It looks like that gap is maybe starting to grow a little bit at this point. We check back as Polasek and O-Ring continue to battle it out. That gap has come down here with 5.5 minutes left to go on the clock. Now these two, O-Ring is off, coming through turn 14. That was in the back of your shot. O-Ring has gone off, trying to get that Dallara EXP back on in its way, but that is going to cost him buckets of time.
Yeah, I think that probably puts a pin on this battle a little bit, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but that's what happens when you have two cars that are closely matched. The cars are equal from a car standpoint, and then just takes a little bit of a mistake to have a slide, and now there's a 7-8 second gap.
Yeah, and it looks like O-Ring's able to get back and point it the right way, so they'll keep going. Here's a Luke Gobi, and oh, look at that, 2.1 seconds, the gap now between herself and Sudik. That gap was next to nothing, and it's just grown now at this point.
Yeah, and I think there's still, 2 seconds with maybe looks like about probably 3 laps left in the race. There's still a chance you can overcome that. Again, it only takes a little bit of a mistake from Sudik to kind of close that gap from ahead, but also if you just perfect, you might be able to close that from behind as well.
Well, we'll have to see here. Not a whole lot of time left, but with lap times here at about 2 minutes or so, it is going to be a little bit of a longer run for everybody. The gap up at the front of the field, by the way, between Whitehead and Manning is about 12.5 seconds. In a 30-minute race, that is an impressive feat.
Yeah, it comes down to almost half a second a lap every single lap, so it's pretty crazy to keep up that type of gap and be consistent about it and be that much quicker and not make any mistakes. So it's a pretty good kudos out to the leader there.
So Luke Gobi gets a little bit squirrely coming out of turn 5, able to catch that car and get it back underneath them. That's what they're able to do here as they go. Now down into turn 7. That's always kind of an interesting corner because there are some cars you've got to lift a little bit through there. Higher downforce models, you can take it flat. It always feels like it's right on the limit.
For sure, and it's again one of those really big consequence turns because you're doing very little in your speed adjustment. At best, you're just doing a lift on the throttle, but you can't drop 2 wheels off there because there's all these big divots in the ground. So as soon as you do that, you'll bottom the car out and it can spin you around really fast. So you have to be really precise. And then in respect to the lap time, even if you're doing a little bit of a lift, there's a pretty big difference on where you're doing that lift on how much time you lose. So trying to find that fine balance of where you're doing your lift, where do you need to do the lift to change the direction of the car, all those things are a huge challenge, but you can't ask for too much or you'll make a huge mistake there, and normally it's a great way to end your whole weekend.
Is almost ending the weekend there at that point. Is Luke Gobi coming through turn 14 again. Looks like we may be experiencing, just based off of the naked eye, perhaps a little bit of tire wear on these cars. It seems like they are getting looser and looser as the fuel burns off. These tires get a little more laps in them.
That's right, and we generally feel that in real life, and I think in the sim, especially if you're pushing really, really hard on the tire, maybe you're asking a little bit too much slip out of them, you can kind of accelerate that loss of grip a little bit, so you really have to be sensitive to that. It's almost easier to feel it in real life than it is in the sim, so you have to be paying a lot more attention to it in the sim, that you're not slipping the tires too much and adding too much heat to them, getting the pressures too high. All those things add up into lap time.
Yeah, they do, and one of the things you've got to watch out for a little bit with that is unlike in the real car, unless you've got a full motion rig, in which case, can I borrow it? You don't feel it by the seat of your pants. You've got to kind of hear it and feel it in your fingertips a little bit more when you're on the sim, correct?
That's right, and on the sim, you're really feeling it mostly through your kind of force feedback in the wheel. So if you're being smooth with your hands, then any kind of change in force in the middle of the turn can give you hints on whether you're understeering or oversteering. So you really have to feel the car a different way, and then you're also feeling the car with your eyes. Often the change in yaw rate, you can see that in the sim. So you're trying to feel that with your eyes, and those things are giving you clues about the balance. And then as far as the slip goes, you just have to be knowing what how your foot is affecting the rear tires and how your steering angle is affecting the front tires through the middle of the turn, and you just have to find the clues that you utilize to give you that information.
Well, again, more and more notes that I continue to take here to take back to my sim. Luke Whitehead, though, looks like he is going to be potentially coming to the checkered flag. 20 seconds to go. Still has yet to run through Canada corner. This has been just a dominant performance for Whitehead.
That's right, and it's pretty impressive by all means, and he looks pretty unbothered. So I think this is maybe cruise mode for him. So pretty impressive overall.
This is just what he normally is like. He is one of the most cool and collected people I have ever met. Comes to the line looking to make it 2 out of 2 at the PRI Esports Arena. He's got it. Checkered flag for Luke Whitehead. A fantastic run for the driver from the UK. He will be very, very happy with that result, no doubt. But he's got to do it all over again. We're not done yet. A little bit of a drift through turn 1 just for good measure. Manning going to be able to hold on to P2.
That's right, and I mean, even being on the podium in this race, we saw a lot of action, a lot of sliding, so a lot of little mistakes, so being able to get on the podium is a huge accomplishment here today.
Really is. Here we check back in on 5th place, Logan McKenzie. A little bit of an up and down race, very much of an up and down race here for Olu Gobi. Nicholas Sudik in 6th place, coming through the carousel right now. Just pushing to the line as much as possible. Tashida's dropped the position there to Gobi. Not sure what happened to Tashida. Oh, Blake Tashida, and that car is not looking well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on there.
Almost looked like he hit the sprinkler system.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I can only guess.
Oh, okay, we both looked forward as if we were going to see a replay of it.
That's right.
But we're going to come back right now. We're going to go in a little bit more. We've got another 30-minute race coming up, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. You sticking around for that as well?
This was the only one that I had time for today, unfortunately.
All good, my friend. We want to thank you so much for joining us here, Kevin. Thank you so very much. All of the insight, all the ability to make my racing better. I love it.
Perfect. No, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
It's great. Thank you so much. Hello and good afternoon from the motor racing capital of the world, Indianapolis, here at the PRI Arena, Esports Racing Arena. We are so very excited to welcome you here today for race number 2 for our Sim Racing Championships. We had a fantastic run here from the previous drivers. Luke Whitehead taking victory as he did the day before, but now we've got a little bit of an invert coming into everything, and that's going to play itself out. Drivers are getting strapped into their sims right now, and we are going to be ready to see the racing action take place in a 30-minute sprint race in just a few moments' time. My name is DJ Clark, and I'll be joining you for all of the action here today. And this one's going to be pretty cool. We have the Dallara EXP, everybody racing the same car, and that is going to be at the National Park of Speed. We're throwing every nickname you can at you here today. It'll be at the National Park of Speed. That's right, Road America. Absolutely fantastic to see. I was lucky enough to be joined by Kevin Boehm a little bit earlier on, and Kevin and I had a long conversation about just how surprisingly technical this track is. It may seem a little bit normal, it may seem a little bit cut and dry, but it is such a surprisingly difficult track to master and to get underneath you. Start hearing some engines revving, though, which means that we're getting closer and closer to that time for these drivers to head on out. Again, a top 8 inversion will be what's taking place for these drivers, which means that the likes of Luke Whitehead is going to be starting mid-pack. That's going to be a huge thing here. We've really only seen Luke out at the front of the field controlling things. We haven't seen him have to have a little bit of wheel-to-wheel action, fight his way through the field. How is he going to be able to do that? How is he going to succeed? What is he going to be able to do when he's got to be in the mid-pack? It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see, and it will be taking place here in just a few minutes' time. I can see some scrambling around me as everybody tries to get everything set and ready to go. Drivers starting to make their way onto the grid right now, getting themselves set. And this, of course, is frankly a special event when it comes to sim racing. Normally when we talk about sim racing championships and anything of that nature, it really and truly is a private affair. You are home by yourself, able to eliminate as many distractions as possible and just focus in on the sim. Having everyone around, having this big arena here in the bowels of Lucas Oil Stadium is not something these drivers are used to. So that is something that they will have to contend with and figure out how to make play. More engines starting to rev. I can hear them getting ready to fire off here as we get closer and closer to time. Got a live picture-in-picture view there of some of our drivers getting set, getting ready to go. Everybody getting themselves together. We saw some fantastic side-by-side action all the way through the last race. Really and truly battles up and down through the field. We saw a great battle taking place at the end for 3rd place. We saw it also down in 5th. The battles for 7th and 8th. Lou Gobi had a little bit of a yo-yo race there, but we did see some pretty fantastic running throughout the rest of the field. More and more drivers getting set. That's what I'm looking over my shoulder on. Complete look behind the camera. I'm checking out to make sure they're getting themselves set and ready to go. They are to either side of me here, so that's what they're doing. But we get ready to go racing once again. This will be a 30-minute race. 1 minute 40 is what I'm being told by the man behind the curtain. Love to hear that. Thank you, Joelle. We're very, very happy to have that happen. It's our amazing crew from around the world coming in to help us out. So about 1 minute and 40 seconds. That's all you have to hear me vamp at this point. All right, there you can see them on the grid. On the grid, ready to go. We wait for those lights to come on. That will be the indication that we are ready to get going. Again, the top 10 inverted from the earlier race will certainly change things up a little bit. This is the moment in the racing, though, where drivers have to calm those nerves a little bit. It's very common. You see the lights start to come on, you feel the adrenaline come up a little bit, but the truth of the matter is, as a driver, you have to push that adrenaline down, get it out of your system. You want to approach turn one calm, cool, and collected with absolutely no nerves at all. And that's what these drivers have to do. And they need to keep those nerves away for a full 30 minutes around the National Park of Speed. All right, lights are on. Here we go. It is going to be 6 lights as an indication of when we will go racing. 3, 4, 5, and there goes the green. We are racing from Road America. It's a good getaway from the front row, even better from second place as we go 2, almost 3 wide down the main straightaway, trying to sort themselves out. Contact in the back of the field, cars ping-ponging off the wall as we dive down into turn 1. Alu Kobe leads the way. Tashida now going to be to the outside, but we've got spinners as it looks like Sudik, Michael, everybody getting turned around. Massive damage to the front of the cars as it looks like Kobe, Owens, and Oring have all been taken out into turn 1. Luke Whitehead, the winner from the previous race, already up into looks like P5, fighting right now with McKenzie to try to be able to take P4 away from him. Ryan Tashida going to lead the way right now. Michael Manning going to be the 1, 3 wide coming down into turn 5. Here comes Luke Whitehead. He goes for a 2 for 1. He's got it, but contact sends McKenzie spinning around. McKenzie is not in good position. That is going to be him off into the tire barriers around turn 5 as they gather themselves back up. McKenzie able to get back out onto the track. Whitehead doing exactly what he needs to do at this point and moving his way into P3. Drivers going off in front of McKenzie, though. That looks like that may have been Thad or that could have been Ogren. Not sure exactly. Whitehead, though, the story of the moment, up into 3rd from an 8th place starting position. He moves his way up. Closing down on Blake Tashida. Seeing if he can gain any run down through the kink. Good clean line from Luke Whitehead. And now he's got the run coming down through Kettle Bottoms. He sweeps around what will be the inside of Canada Corner, making it look easy as Luke Whitehead already up into P2. That is 6 positions in 1 lap, folks. Now Tashida just needs to get those nerves out of the way, focus in on what he's got. John Ackerman, focused ahead. Thad Weaver, we mentioned him a little bit earlier. He rides in 8th place right now, currently trying to close in on the back of Mike Ogren. It's a good run here for Weaver. If he can just close down that draft a little bit, time it exactly right, as we talked about earlier with Kevin Bohm. Not going to be able to get it done into turn 1. Maybe a little bit of a contrary line, but he'll keep it together. Farther back down in the field, it looks like Ackerman and Gobi may have had a little bit of a problem. Sudik able to move up 2 positions. Now McKenzie up 2 positions as Ackerman and Gobi fall down another 2. We keep our eyes here on Sergeant Thad Weaver. Weaver focusing in. Up ahead of him, it's also a nice little battle between Warren Tashida and Wade Tashida, excuse me. Wade Tashida gets a good run off of turn 6. This could be a little bit of a dive down into turn 8. No, thinks better of it and backs off. Now gets the power down, working their way through the carousel. Tashida taking a little bit of a wider line, maybe trying to carry a little bit more exit speed out of that famous long, never-ending right-hander. Tell you what, he's got a great run through the kink. It's about a car length as they come down through Kettle Bottoms. Now he's going to move to the outside of Kettle Bottoms. Sweeps to what will be the inside of Canada Corner. Battle of the late breakers down into Canada Corner. And I've got to give credit there to Michael. He slammed the door hard on Wade Tashida. Tashida undeterred, but they've got to watch out as Mike Ogren now enters the chat, but Whitehead contact there with Michael, and that's going to put him down in the order. Meanwhile, Michael Polasek and the other Tashida up at the front of the field. This is in P3. Power their way down the Marine sweep now at this point. Polasek trying to see if he can get the run. Jumping up to now the battle for first position as it is Luke Whitehead closing down on Michael Manning. Looking down through the kink, we know Whitehead's got the outright pace. It really is just going to be a question of how hard he can push here. Dives down to the inside there of Michael. He's going to give him a little bit of the bumper, a little bit squirrely as they come off the corner. Manning not giving this up quietly. He's going to have the inside of Bill Mitchell Bend. Almost contact there with Whitehead, and he pulls it out, keeps going ahead. Whitehead up to his rightful position at the lead of this field. He is in dominant fashion, up into the front and back into the lead of this race. And folks, he has only done that with about 6 minutes down in this race. Ethan Oring moving his way forward. I think Thad Weaver's had a little bit of a problem as he's dropped down through the order. Now he's back up again. Michael trying to recover. Polasek still in that battle. With Tashida. Blake Tashida not able to get the run into turn 5. I like what I'm seeing here out of Blake. He's very, very calm about this. He's not pushing too far ahead. He's not driving outside of his means. This is a very calm and tempered race approach here from Blake Tashida. Is losing a little bit of time here at this point. The gap is up to about 9.5 tenths of a second. Meanwhile, Thad Weaver coming up on a very close battle. Ooh. McKenzie and Weaver getting into the side of one another. Contact between the two. Weaver off to the inside there of turn 5. Going to have to back the car back up. That'll demote him down into 13th position as Ackerman is able to get on by him. We focus back in now on Luke Whitehead, who sets the fastest lap at the race, focusing in on Logan McKenzie. McKenzie trying to close down on Michael in front. Michael runs a little bit wide through the kink. That's going to open up a little bit of a door for Logan McKenzie, who it looks like at this point the overtake maneuver of the race is to sweep around the outside of Kettle Bottoms. Get that run going down into Canada Corner. Actually, make the overtake complete before they jump onto the binders for Canada Corner. So that moves McKenzie back up into 9th position. We're going to focus back on another battle here. This is Mike Ogren holding off Ethan Oring, going down into turn 5. Oring going to have a little bit of a look to the inside. I think he may be able to get that to play. Indeed, he does. That's almost a pixel-perfect pass there for Ethan Oring. You love to see that. And Oring now finds himself in P6, closing down on Tashida in P5. This could be a top 5 day here for Ethan Oring. Mike Ogren not done yet. He wants to be able to try to close back in on that 6th place position. Ogren tries to get that run down through the kink, Gary the run through Kettle Bottoms. This is that move that we've seen time in and time out. He's not quite able to get it to play, but he knows it could be successful. As they continue to go here at this point. Ogren trying to close in as they cross over the start-finish stripe. That gap at about 8, call it 9/10 of a second. This is your closest battle on track, with Oring not too far in front of him, or Tashida not too far in front of him. That's where the battle may be. Ogren's lost a step coming through turn 14. Now here comes Ethan Oring on the back of Tashida. This again for 5th place. Oh, a little bit of a look, maybe a little bit of contact. Oring down to the inside of turn 5, gets on the binders, and he's got the move done. Great run there from Ethan Oring. Tashida may want to look for a little bit of an overtake here himself, but he's going to have to wait. Turn 6, notoriously difficult. Though we did see a pass or two get done into turn 6 not too long ago in that previous race. Here comes a run from Oring. He's got a little bit of overspeed coming down through Kettle Bottoms. Doesn't quite have the speed to make the pass. Oring definitely has the desire here at this point. Through turn 14, Oring's lost a little bit of a step there. Call that gap about a half a second as they cross over the stripe. Let's see if we can get an exact readout. It looks like it's exactly a half a second as they crossed over the stripe. Focusing back in the field, Jason Owens back down in 11th position right now, trying to close down on Michael. That gap about 8/10 of a second. Trying to see if there is anything to play for Owens. Owens really pushing to the limits of the track there, almost all the way wide, coming down through turn 2. And a little bit of a flash of the headlights there. You love to see it from Owens, just trying to get into the head of his competitors. Whitehead, meanwhile, has set fastest lap after fastest lap, it seems like. Every single time I look up, he's setting a faster lap still. Pushing through the final corner here at this point, coming to the stripe now as we hit the halfway point in this 30-minute race. Pulling the gap over to Shida. It continues to grow. Remember that pass made not too long ago. It's now at about 2.5 seconds. Oring has about a 13-second gap up to the other Tashida, farther up in the field. That's going to be a little bit harder to try to make up. I think 13 seconds here in 14 minutes is probably just a little bit too much to ask for. We will see if he's able to do just that. Here's Sergeant Michael Serra. Owens behind him. This is a pretty close battle, only about 1.2 seconds. This is the battle currently for 10th position. Serra continues to push right now, trying to grow that gap. It's up to 1.4 seconds. Nicholas Sudik here at this point trying to push ahead. He runs in 7th position behind Tashida, ahead of Mike Ogren. Remember, that gap with Ogren was the one that we talked about earlier that he needed to try to close down on, but Sudik not giving him any opportunity to close that down. Sudik brings the car through turn 1. He's only got about 2.5 seconds up to the other Tashida, so this could play itself out into something interesting before everything is done and dusted. 2.2. Sudik is gaining time here on Tashida. This race may not be over yet for this 6th place position. You hear those engine noises popping down through the gears. Sudik's got the gap down to 1.9. Game on here between Michael Serra and Owens. As Luke Whitehead does Luke Whitehead things and sets the fastest lap of the race once more. Serra. Down onto the binders. A little bit slow through turn 5 at minimum apex speed, it has to be said. Keeps pushing, able to carry better speed through the middle part of the lap. now it looks like Sarah's lost a substantial amount of time. That gap was under a second not too long ago. It's up to 1.5. Now we check back in on the battle for P6 between Toshida and Sudik. Sudik closing in, looking to the outside of turn 5. We haven't seen that move happen all that often. Sudik has to slow it a little bit more than he'd like at the apex, gets out onto the grass, kicks up some dirt for good measure, and he's going to have to try this all over again. That gap re-extending back out to about 1.1 seconds. Call it 9/10. Now it's down to about a half second. This could be the best move we've seen in the race. This could be the move we've consistently seen in the race. That move to the outside coming through kettle bottoms. That's exactly what Sudik is going to go for. Around the outside he goes, down to the inside of the Canada corner. Nicholas Sudik with the move, with the position. He's up into P6. It together here at this point through turn 14. Sudik now trying to stretch his advantage over to Shida. Gap expanding to 1.3 seconds, keeping an eye back on Sarah as well. Nothing to really report there. That gap is 1.7 seconds here at this point. It looks like he hasn't really been able to close that back up. Only about 8 minutes left to go. Whoa, a little bit of lap traffic coming on through there on Sarah. He's able to get out of the way and stay out of the way. Question's going to be here, though, for Owens, if this is going to slow him down at all. It has brought the gap down a little bit. All right, another battle, though. Logan McKenzie, Mike Ogren. This is the battle for P8 with under 7 minutes left to go from the National Park of Speed. McKenzie trying to close in that orange Dallara EXP, closing down on the pink machine of Mike Ogren. Ogren a little bit wider. Still keeps it together. McKenzie definitely pushing at a turn 14. Here they come, climbing up the hill. Ogren going defensive. He knows McKenzie's coming on strong. McKenzie's so far out wide, he's going to kick onto the grass, but enough overspeed to carry him on by. Move Logan McKenzie up into 8th place. Ethan Oring, now a little bit of a battle with Toshida for P4. This gap only 9/10 of a second. kink. Gap growing a little bit. Tsushita now growing it up to about 1.3 seconds. I think Oren got a little bit of a bad run coming through the carousel. Oh, and Oren goes off the track down into Canada corner. Kicks up a little bit of kitty litter, and that is going to effectively scupper any chance he has of moving his way up into P4. Focusing back on Logan McKenzie, Mike Ogren not letting this one go quietly. He's going to stick closely behind. Pushing ahead here does McKenzie. That gap only about 9/10 of a second though. But the front of the field, Whitehead has held that gap in about, call it 12 seconds. Polisic. Keeps trying to push ahead. Oring was close, but that little mistake he made really scuppered any chance he had of closing up to Tsushita up in front of him. Logan McKenzie now just trying to pull away. Looks like Owens has lost a position there to Michael Serra, I believe. Serra just able to get a little bit of a better run. Now they switch back and forth. Meanwhile, the battle we follow, McKenzie still keeping ahead. Take a look live, picture in picture. That is Luke Whitehead down in the corner of your screen. With about 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go, Luke should be coming to the white flag this time by. About 2:04, 2 minutes is the exact count. Here's that battle between Serra and Jason Owens. These two have been swapping positions back and forth, left and right, really over the past 3 laps. Owens now trying to go around the outside of the carousel. Didn't exactly work. Serra makes a little bit of a mistake, runs wide on the exit of the carousel. Owens not able to get the move on Serra down into Canada corner. He's going to hold that one off for the moment. Serra goes wide on the exit of turn 14, noses the car into the tire bundles around the outside, and that will effectively scupper Serra's race. He's going to get the car spun back around and keep it going. Well, what was a good day there for Sergeant Michael Serra, all coming unraveled. Meanwhile, Luke Whitehead, 55 seconds on the clock, ready to make his way into the history books, making it a perfect 3 for 3 on the weekend. He pushes his way ahead, down through the carousel. Out of the carousel, pixel perfect lines he takes. Now down through the kink, little bit opposite lock just to keep things interesting. Canada corner for the final time. 10 seconds on the clock. Brings the car through turn 14. Little bit of a slip and slide at the exit of the corner, but here comes Whitehead, gives us an A-OK as he crosses over the line and takes victory for the third time this weekend. It is Luke Whitehead. Tashida down into pit lane, not sure what happened there to him. Manning gonna come across the line. That'll be second. Velocic. Polasek coming through now. Trying to navigate by some lap traffic. Not sure if that's going to play out. He's going to move to the inside here, get the draft. That'll be the final podium position. Taken for Michael. Ethan Oring, your next driver on the lead lap. 1.3 seconds the gap between himself and Nicholas Sudik. That was a pretty fierce battle that we saw happening, frankly, all race long. Oring comes up the hill. Across the line he goes. Oring, 4th place. Sudik, 5th place. Having a little fun with it. We are on the sim. He's going to crash that car into the barriers. Here comes Mike Ogren. I believe the last driver on the lead lap. Out of turn 14. And he crosses over the stripe. As we take a look back on the highlights here of the day, a little bit more action in this race, as you can imagine. Lots of back and forth as things were. Very good side-by-side battle there with Tashida and Michael Serra. This was about 5 minutes into the race. Well, all right, folks, we are going to continue to roll some highlights here. You will be able to check that out. Want to thank you very, very much for joining us all around here at PRI, at the PRI Sim Racing Arena, as well as joining us here on Twitch. Again, my name is DJ Clark. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring you through today. If you are here at the arena, we'll be opening up these sims tomorrow, and you'll be able to try your hand at a Assetto Corsa Competizione. Thank you so very much, and it's been a pleasure.